Welcome to Locales Unknown. This podcast gives you the tools you need to choose your next travel destination and the tips you want to be able to explore like a local. Here are your hosts, Chris and Winfield.
Welcome back to another episode of Locales Unknown. Today we are here with Kimberly Carter, who is a Panamanian native, and we had the pleasure of meeting each other, I guess, a few weeks ago now. So Kim, thanks so much for coming on the show, and please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course, thank you for having me. So yeah, you can obviously call me Kim, Kimo, however you want to call me, that's fine. So I'm Panamanian, 50-50 actually. My mom's Brazilian, so there's a mix there. But I was born and raised in Panama, and I came with 18 years old to study at American University here in Washington, D.C., international relations, did my master's as well, and then found a job and stayed. But I definitely try to go back home anytime I have the opportunity to visit my friends and family.
Oh, that's terrific. Panama we hear a lot about Panama in the States, a small country. Obviously, the U.S. relationship with Panama goes all the way back to independence and secession from Colombia. So there's a lot of history there between the two countries. Just give us a little bit of an overview of the country. Very popular with expats and a lot of people looking for kind of an alternative travel lifestyle, whether it's living in the country half the year or being there for residency purposes. So just give us an overview of some of your favorite places and what you like to do.
Of course. So I'm actually very glad we're doing this today. So November 3rd was the Panamanian independence from Colombia. And yesterday was the National Symbols Day. So like the flag, the anthem, and all of that stuff. So I'm very glad we're talking about Panama in our national month, because that's very, very nice and very proud for myself. So Panama is very peculiar, that I can say. I'm super happy I'm from there. I'm so glad my mom had me there, because Panama, it's a country that has a little bit of everything. People wear their hearts in their sleeve, and we are willing to help anybody, no matter where you're from, what's your race, what's your age, what's your language, your culture. And that's something I really love about the country. You can find tropical rainforests. You can find incredible archipelago of islands with clear waters. You have the Caribbean culture in it. You have the Pacific side, which is that kind of like specific area where everything that we see is business-like and financial district, the actual city, the capital city. But I feel like that's what most people see. It's either the Bocos del Toro side, where everything is tropical and all the expats from the USA go live to retire because it's cheap and there's so many Americans there. And then they forget about the rest of the country, where obviously this is why I'm so glad I'm talking to you guys, because like the Caribbean side is like if you are stepping out of the city, going into Colón, which is on the Caribbean side of Panama, near the Atlantic Ocean, and then it's like if you're stepping into Jamaica. It's literally that. You don't even feel like you're in Panama anymore. And that's something so special about the country, is that there's this diaspora of cultures that remains so unique to every single culture, but that's what makes Panamanians Panamanians. The Panamanian culture is a mixture of different cultures from different parts of the world that become unique as we are.
I'm so glad you mentioned that about the expats, because anyone that I've talked to, when they say about that culture and lifestyle down in Panama, it always seems to be in the same region, same location, almost isolated from the rest of the country. So is that something that you see, where it's just almost like its own little expat bubble and it's not spread out amongst the rest?
So yes, we kind of see American tourists in two different parts of the country. You obviously see them in the city visiting Casco Viejo, which is the old city of Panama. Yep. You see them at bars. Everyone in Casco Viejo speaks English at the bars because they know that they will have a lot of American tourists visiting. And then you see the other side of Panama, which is near the border with Costa Rica, which is where Bocos del Toro is. And that is all American people. Like, I go there to visit because I'm like, this is not Panama. This is so different. Everything, every bar, every club, everything is American. So it is kind of like their own bubble. And it's interesting because it's a typical tourist American that's wearing no shirt, cargo shorts, and flip-flops, you know, because like they are in their tropical zone. That's where they retire because it's also very cheap. And it is the typical island life. You take a water taxi everywhere you go in Bocos del Toro because it's from island to island. You might be living in the main island and then you want to go eat somewhere else and you take a water taxi for $1 and you're at the next island. So it's cheap, it's good quality of life, and it's just a tropical paradise.
Yeah, that sounds like heaven right there. No wonder why people retire. Now, you were talking about price. What would you say a good budget is for maybe, I don't know, a couple days or a week long in the country?
So that's interesting because the exchange rate is 1-1. We use dollars, American dollars. So that's why it is amazing to visit if you live in the United States or if you use dollars as your currency because it's so cheap. It is so cheap. When you live there, the standard of living, it is obviously more expensive. Infrastructure is expensive, and sometimes food is expensive because everything is so organic. You're living in a tropical country where we grow in our backyard all of our food, basically. But for visiting and tourists, I would say with like $500 in a week, you'll be fine. Because like you can stay, it depends on obviously what you look for in your visit. You can stay in super expensive hotels and then that would pull up your budget to like $1,000 a week. Or you can stay in the hostels. That's where every tourist I know they stay because they like that idea of sharing their experiences with other travelers and just meeting new people and joining this experience together of getting to know what Panama is. So it would really, really, really depend on what you're looking for. But I would say that from 500 to 1,000 in a week, you'll be totally fine if you do like the local stuff and you try to like move away from like Ubers and like dining in like international restaurants. If you do the local things, you will get a taste of Panama. You will learn so much about the country and you won't spend much.
We're going for local here, so I think we're going to be a little bit on the cheaper side there, but you're absolutely right. It's such a hard question to answer about budget. What if I want to bring back, something? What if I want to buy? What if I want to splurge? So on and so forth. I'm more on the hostel side of things, so I'm glad to hear that there is a hostel culture because I don't think there's anything better than having that shared experience. Even just hang out in the common room as a solo traveler, you meet everybody. And it sounds like that same holds true in Panama as well. Everyone is welcoming and people just want people to go hang out with and maybe go scuba diving because I'm a scuba diver. So that's what I know Panama for, one of the small things. And unfortunately, I don't know much about the country, but you guys have about 5 or 6 of the national parks, oceanic, aquatic national parks that are just incredible for scuba diving.
Oh yeah, 100% scuba diving and surfing. So a lot of my friends surf and they've met like incredible surfers that are well known worldwide. They go to practice in Panama. Like, what? Are you kidding me? And obviously scuba diving. I've never been to Coiba, which is one of the environmental paradises in Panama. It's an island in the Pacific and it's a sanctuary. So everything there's no trash, there's anything, and people go there to really explore the local species for scuba diving. So that's amazing. Awesome. As a Panamanian, I should have gone there a long time ago, but I haven't had the opportunity.
Well, thank you for actually telling us the pronunciation because I was holding back. I was kind of keeping vague there because I didn't want to butcher it. So thank you.
One thing that you mentioned earlier as well that I think is kind of a running theme on this show is the diversity of cultures within nation states. And we often forget that in some other places where the culture is more monolithic. But you mentioned Cologne. We also talked on another occasion about San Blas and kind of more the indigenous area. So I know, for instance, there's a train from Panama City to Cologne. How do people who want to get off the beaten track, I know it's an overused phrase, but it's the easiest way to put it, actually get to move around Panama? And what do you recommend for visiting places that are a little bit less touristy?
Of course, no, and that's my 100% recommendation is to obviously go visit the old city, the Panama Canal, the railroad, but try to move away from that and go into the interior of Panama. So the different provinces that are away from Panama City, because that's where you will find cheaper stuff and that are really locally made. I love Panama because of its merge of cultures, as I mentioned before. And for example, the railroad, you can take it because there's this wagon that's all glass and you can see the rainforest while you go to Colon. It's like a 45-minute train ride, and it must not be more than $30 today. But there's a new highway that goes from Panama City to Colon in 30 minutes. So my recommendation would be rent a car. It's not expensive, and it will take you everywhere because you can cross the country from one border to the other in approximately 6-7 hours maximum. So if you rent a car and you are spending a week there, you should definitely plan your vacation to actually explore those local towns, those local provinces in the middle of Panama. So yeah, definitely rent a car. I wouldn't recommend, Ubers are super cheap. I took an Uber from my house to one of the clubs in the old city when I went in July, and I was ready for my $15 like I pay here. No, and it's like my house is like 10 minutes away. It was $2. $2
Nice.
for an Uber. I was impressed. But I would say take a car. If you get lost, that's even better because you open your window, you just ask the locals where you're going, and they would be right there giving you recommendations of what's popping locally. And that's just the whole thing about Panamanians. It's just ask them. They're going to give you the tips while you're there, and you're going to get to merge more with the culture yourself.
Is there a scooter or motorcycle culture there? And is it just the car, or will I be able to maybe rent a motorcycle? Because I ride and I'd much rather just have that experience on two wheels.
Yeah. So, okay, scooters were introduced like a month ago. You know, the ones you rent with your phone. That's new.
Yeah.
That's a new thing.
Okay.
Like Starbucks came to Panama like 3 years ago only. So yeah, new thing. Like they're opening up the economy for like international brands to come into the city. Before it was only local things, which was amazing, but it doesn't hurt us to open up more into the world. I would say motorcycles, there's people that use them, but it's more people who work with it, like delivery guys. If you want to have one because you like that, sure, but it's very dangerous. Something that I tell everyone is if you learned how to drive in Panama, you can drive anywhere in the world. Because that's how Panamanians drive. It is horrible. That's why I'm telling you. If you know how to drive in Panama, you're good for the rest of the world.
I just thought in Winfield, we definitely have to remember this because I think everyone believes they have the worst drivers in the world wherever they're from, including in the States. You go to New York, oh, worst drivers. You go to Florida, you go to California, everyone hates the drivers in their area. So we got to start asking everybody, Winfield, what do you think of the people in your country when they're driving? So,
that might have to be one of the new questions it comes in standard.
I would say that because, I've been to New York and I hate New York drivers, like in Manhattan. Oh, it's horrible. But you got the painted lines, you got the street signs. Panama doesn't really have that in every street. If you get lost, there's not even lines on the road you can follow. Like that's how local we are with our driving.
Organized chaos.
Yep.
You mentioned it's okay to get lost. Go ahead. Everyone will be extremely helpful. What about the language? So how often do you find that most people can speak English, even outside of the main bubbles of the expats?
Of course. So I would say, obviously, first of all, precaution. Every country has their red zones. Panama has a red zone right next to the old city, which is where the best restaurants, the best bars are at. But that doesn't mean you're just going to get robbed right in the scene. That doesn't happen. But just keep an eye out. However, I would say that English in Panama, everybody learns it in school, even if it's only one class. I studied in English all my life because my school was an international school. However, I would feel like the Caribbean side, so the Atlantic coast of Panama, is where most people speak English because of the Caribbean influence of people from Jamaica. So you just step into Colon and everybody is speaking English. It's not perfect English. It's literally Caribbean English, but they're speaking English. In Bocas, they speak English. In the city, definitely speak English. However, if you know a little bit of Spanish, that wouldn't hurt.
No, exactly. It's just having a little bit of the local language, whether or not it's a few words, just hello, good day, just to as a sign of respect. But one of the things that I wanted to ask about, and we've already talked about this a little bit, is just the going back to diversity, going back to all of the different landscapes and the different microclimates within the isthmus. There's the Darien Gap, which I know when we spoke another time, you said it's quite dangerous. There's a lot of issues there. One of my personal dreams, and I think Chris might be in on this as well, is to do the Panamericana all the way down to Ushuaia. And of course, the only, not to make a pun, the only gap there is the fact that the road does not continue through that stretch into Colombia. You have to put your vehicle on a vessel and have it shipped to Colombia and then make your way overland if you want so choose. Of course, you can fly or make other arrangements, but it is quite a bit of headache and bureaucratic hassle, etc. So long story short, do you recommend people visiting there? Can they visit safely with a guide? Can they spend time and really see what Panamanian life is like in that region? Or is it something that you would not recommend at this point?
Sure. Thank you for asking that. So regarding transportation to cross the country into Colombia, I would recommend the boat part of it because the Darien Gap is known for having a lot of La FARC presence. So it is very dangerous. I even know someone, like a family friend, that got kidnapped by someone in La FARC. They were a constructor worker. They were building their building, and he just got taken in the city. And they crossed the Darien Gap, and he was lost for 5 years, and then suddenly appeared. They let him go. So long story short, it is a dangerous area. Personally, when I was in high school, we did a lot of volunteer work in the area to help the local communities. And the only way we could get deep into the rainforest area of Darien was with SINAPROC, which was the local guards of the rainforest that work with the government. They are trained for any local conflict between any communities or any international conflict if there were to be Colombian forces in the region. So that's the only way we could go. And we weren't even deep into the rainforest. We were literally in the side communities helping build farmland for them to build their own crops. So that was the only experience I've had in Darien. I would say if you want to cross over, maybe take a flight or choose the ocean route. But if you want to visit the communities, you can go as long as it's not deep into the forest.
Thank you for that explanation, because to your point, I've seen various documentaries, and some people choose to go by barge or go on foot over land. Most choose to explore a little bit of the region, but then use another alternate means of transport to pick up their vehicle in Cartagena, the main port on the Caribbean side. And of course, the Pacific side has other options as well. So with Panama, we cannot talk about the country without bringing up the canal. And of course, how integral that is to not only the economy of the country, but also its history. So give us a little bit of an overview. Usually there are obviously a lot of canal tours that you can do with a group or by bus. Is there a way to do some independent exploration, whether it be, as Chris mentioned, not by motorcycle, or something that you can do on your own with your own vehicle, or even a public transport option?
Yeah, of course. So for the canal, you obviously, if you're in Panama City, you go to Miraflores Locks, which is the first set of locks in the Pacific. And you can go by yourself. It's a whole museum, and you can see the boats passing by. They even have a restaurant where you can have lunch, dinner, whatever you want to have, water, drink something while the boats are passing. And you can see the locks open, the water come up, the whole system. The museum there is actually one of my favorites. Every time I go back, I go visit because they have this huge like cinema where they show you a little clip of about 25 minutes of what is the history of the canal, even the expansion. And every time I go watch it, I actually cry and shed some tears because it is the most important thing that Panama is known for. We live off of tourism and the canal. So it is just an incredible story. You can definitely go. It's $10 if I'm not mistaken. The last time I went, to just go see the whole museum, see the boats passing. There's no time frame that you can like go in and leave. You can stay there the whole day if you wish. Now, there are tours where you can take that you go on a boat and go through the canal from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And that is very, very, very nice, but it takes about 16 hours. So it's like a whole day type of thing. But there are other tours that just take you on the first set of locks, which is like 30 minutes to pass, as long as you're in the queue, because they're like, you can see it once you're like out in the city at night. You can see from the causeway, which is the area the Americans built. It's literally one highway in the middle of the ocean that goes to different islands where there are like bars, shops, and stuff like that. And you can see in the horizon at night a bunch of lights just in the middle of the ocean. And when you really realize it, it's a bunch of cargo ships waiting to go into the canal. And that's amazing because it's like people from all around the world need this waterway to literally get to their different places. Their merchandise has to get to their businesses and everything. And it's just incredible of how I've been telling you guys that it's not only culture locally and the merging of cultures. You can see this in the middle of the ocean and how different boats are just standing there patiently waiting to pass through the canal.
You can hear the pride in your voice. It's coming across. I hope all our listeners are getting the same thing, because we see you on video and see this big smile. Your eyes are wide when you're talking about it. It's an amazing thing to be known for. Would you say that same kind of pride is reflected amongst the country? Is everyone so proud of the fact that you do have this canal? You are the entryway, the gatekeepers?
Oh, yeah, 100%. A slogan that Panamanians use a lot that became one of the main airlines, Copa Airlines slogan, is that Panama is the hub of the Americans, the hub of the Americas, the heart of the world. In Spanish, obviously. Oh, wow. And that's what describes us. We are this financial district, amazing city, but there's much more to it. We are literally the heart of the world because everybody passes through us, and they live a little bit of them and they take a little bit of us with them.
And not to plug Copa Airlines too much, but they definitely are the connector of the Americas. I remember the first time I came down to Brazil, I actually used their service. So Panama City is undoubtedly the hub of the Central American region, whether it's going to South America or back to North America.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe a future sponsor. Hello.
There we go. I like how you think, Chris. So in terms of Panamanian food, what should we be on the lookout for?
Okay, so there are different things. So one of the main things is Sancocho, which is a soup. I'm not a fan of soups, but this one, it has a lot of things in it. You can find different vegetables, potato, chicken. My friend puts French fries inside of it when he's hungover. This is like the Panamanian cure to hangover is Sancocho at 3 a.m. That's what you have to have. Yes.
I was going to say, tried and tested.
It doesn't matter what's in it. If it works, it works, right?
It's a hangover cure with a strawberry kissed. That's a cure for Panamanians. But we also have a lot of fried food. Fried food that gets us to our heart. Literally. We eat for breakfast tortillas, which are like the corn, which is not like the Mexican tortilla. It's literally like a super inch thick yellow corn tortilla. And you have that with cheese on top for breakfast with a side of carimañolas, which is like a croquette with meat inside made of yuca. That's like the typical breakfast. But we also eat a lot of stuff. Like we love to eat steak and eggs, literally for lunch. Typical filete al caballo. Love that. And then you just have fried fish and ceviche. Next to the old city, there's this place called Mercado de Mariscos. So it's everything that is ocean and what do you call that? I forgot.
Fish market. Yeah.
Yes, the fish market.
Seafood market. You had me
seafood market.
Yeah, so the fish market, you go in and you can definitely smell the raw fish and everything, and people are like, this is disgusting. What? Yeah, go outside, sit in the little barracks, order yourself a ceviche, and it's going to be the best ceviche you've ever eaten in your life. because it's right there. It's fresh. They bring the fish from the ocean. They cut it open. They make you your ceviche. It's super fresh. It's delicious. And then you have fried fish with yuca and patacones, which are literally just fried banana and yuca chips. And that is just the Panamanian way.
As I said, you had me at mariscos. For people that don't know about ceviche, it's basically raw fish, but when you mix lime and lemon together, it actually has a chemical reaction that cooks the fish, that takes away any kind of impurities, and it's more something that we associate with Peru, at least for me. But to your point about Caribbean culture, there is that mesh where, as far away as, let's say, Central South America, all the way up to Panama, you still have those same kinds of traditions. So that's what's really interesting, is the cross-cultural aspect.
Oh yeah, 100%. And if you're looking for something sweet, arroz con leche, so rice with milk, literally, and a little bit of cinnamon, or raspado, which is shaved ice with a lot of condensed milk. Yep, in a hot sunny day, that's gonna refresh you.
And now, what about the rums and the beers? What should we be on the lookout for in terms of anejos? And I'm sure there are a lot of options down there.
So my friends down there currently, they're drinking seco herrerano, which is like the local alcohol. It's like moonshine. I really don't like it, but it hits well, and the whole bottle is like $5. So that's
definitely
good.
Have to try that.
And then,
well, you already have the hangover cure, so it doesn't really matter, right?
Right? Yeah. No, and you can have Ron Abuelo is a typical rum from Panama. They have different types, obviously, from 5 years, 12 years, 25 years. But the typical is 12 years with a little bit of Coke, a lime, and then you get your ron cola. And then you can have that. Or, well, we have a lot of influence from Venezuela and Colombia. Obviously, Colombia because they're our neighbors, and Venezuela because of all the immigration. Panama opened their doors to Venezuelan immigrants so they can work and have a safer lifestyle than what's currently happening in Venezuela. So we have a lot of aguardiente and a lot of like Venezuelan food. So like if you're sick of eating so much Panamanian food, you will definitely find different types of drinks and food from all around our neighbors.
Arepas.
Yeah.
Now, I know it's a small country, but do you find that it's different in different regions? The food kind of varies, more of a Caribbean influence versus the Colombian influence?
Yeah, 100%. I would say that in the Pacific side, it's more of what we see on a daily basis, even here in the United States, is that American influence, the typical Panamanian food. And when you step into the Caribbean, it's like Panamanian fried food mixed with jerk chicken and all of that Caribbean flavor. So yeah, it's very different, but there's restaurants in the city, like local restaurants. There's one called Fonda Lo Que Hay in the old city. And that's like a typical Fonda is like that typical restaurant that you look in the street and you're like, oh no, I'm not eating there. That looks nasty. That's a fonda, but that's where you get the best street food. And it's delicious. So they have everything. They have it from the Caribbean fusion food that we get to the Pacific, to our interior food, which is like the typical Panamanian barbecue. And just, it has everything. So you can definitely explore our dishes all around the region.
Making me hungry.
So Winfield and I, yeah, right. we're filming this right around lunchtime, so it's a bad time to be talking about all this food. But so Winfield and I, we're shooting this at the beginning of November, and we're actually going to the Amazon in Brazil in the beginning of December, and we're going to spend a couple nights out there, hopefully surviving. Fingers crossed, guys. But I know that there's lush rainforest in Panama as well. Do you know if there's any type of tours? Does that go into a lot of the tourism, doing some type of treks or camping there?
Oh yeah, 100%. Panamanians are big on camping. In the interior of Panama, literally in the middle of the country, so I can't really say if it's Pacific or Caribbean side, there are a lot of rainforests. Panamanians love hiking. If you go to El Valle de Antón in Cocle, which is one of the provinces in Panama that's near the Caribbean side, you go up the mountains. There's a beautiful valley. A lot of Americans also live there. There are these two specific mountains. One of them is called La India Dormida, and they call it the Indian that's sleeping, because when you see the mountain, it's the silhouette of a woman and her hair going down. And it's like about an 8-hour hike to go up. And the views from there, you can see the whole mountainside of Panama and the whole village down below. It's beautiful. And camping there, I mean, obviously go with a guide, because like I am no rainforest expert, and I know that a lot of tourists have gotten lost there for days. So definitely go with a guide. But yeah, there are a lot of hiking trails, a lot of camping. La Yeguada is also a place in the middle of the country that it's specifically for camping near the waterfalls, the tropical waterfalls. You just go with your tent, stay there a couple of days, eat local food. And also a tropical side of camping would be to go to San Blas. I know a lot of people talk about this. This is it's an island. Well, it's not an island. It's an area in the Caribbean where it's a comarca. It's an indigenous comarca. So it's not a province, but it's an area that is independent for the indigenous people that are called cunas. These are the best beaches in the whole country. It's like drinking water clear. And a lot of people that go visit tourists, they take a catamaran and they just go there and sleep in the catamaran and they eat there. And these are like American or Brazilians that have their catamaran there and they take them on tours. I would recommend go there with your car, which is a very bumpy road, but you can definitely get there, and talk with the locals, the local indigenous people. They would take you on a small little boat to their local island homes, which are like little huts, literally little huts, and just stay there. They would obviously charge you a fee, but you can definitely stay with them. They will teach you their local culture. Literally, you can see them wearing their indigenous outfits, making their indigenous crafts, arts and craft, eating their indigenous food, and you have the beach right in front of you. So that's my recommendation. It would be to go hiking there. It's a tropical hiking place, and you would definitely get exposed to the real local original culture.
That sounds incredible. What kind of wildlife can we expect to see?
Okay, so wildlife, I mean, Panama's not that exotic regarding like really weird animals. Obviously, we have our endangered species, which is two, the aguilarpía. So the harpy eagle is our national bird. They are almost extinct, but obviously in Panama, there's a sanctuary for them to try to prevent extinction. And our rana dorada, so our yellow frog, which if you go to the Baltimore Aquarium, they have a tropical rainforest area in the top part, and they actually have ranas doradas, which is very incredible. But regarding like weird exotic animals, you just get there's a snake, I forgot the name, but it's something like X, so like X, and it's one of the most venomous snakes in the world, and it's in Panama. So I would say just keep an eye out for those.
This is why you need a guide, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
No, but we are, yeah, I mean, besides everything that is the marine ecosystem, that is beyond expectations. People in Panama love to go fishing. You can fish as a sport in Panama, and they go fishing a lot of marlins. So there are a lot of marlins in Panama, and yellowtail, fintail tuna. Those you can't fish. You need to let them go. But the marlins, you can definitely fish them. And yeah, I mean, marine ecosystem is just the biggest thing you will find in Panama.
And going back to what you were talking about with camping, I know we touched on this a little bit earlier with the city in terms of taking precautions in certain areas. Is it safe to camp out alone at night, or not necessarily alone, but in a campsite or something of that nature? Or do you recommend being within earshot of other people? What are some of the issues there?
Yeah, I would say that the issues are more for the city life. Once you step out of the city and you go into the interior parts of Panama, there's not that much violence. It's the typical things you find in any country. But yeah, go ahead and camp alone if you want to, because in Panama, it's not like you're going to put a tent up in the middle of the rainforest, because like the ground is not stable for that. But there are a lot of campsites around the country, and yeah, definitely go in, explore, and you will be safe. You will be sleeping under the stars
Sounds
then
perfect.
maybe we could talk a little bit about the city life itself. I know we've kind of been hovering around the topic food wise and just what to do. But if I were to step into Panama City, what would you recommend for me to see and just make sure that, I take a look at and don't want to miss before leaving?
Of course. So Panama City life, a lot of buildings. They call Panama the Miami of Central America. It's like New York, literally. It's full of tall financial business, banks, the business life. Panama, besides obviously the nightlife and everything that you can find anywhere, to see in the city, I would say that one of the coolest things is we call it the Tornillo. So oh my God, what do you call that in English?
The turning tower? Yeah.
No, it is kind of a turning tower. But basically, it's made all of glass, and it literally is like a screwdriver. That's what it's called. They call it the screwdriver. And it's beautiful. It's super tall. You can't go inside because it's like a financial building, but it's beautiful to take photos of. I would say besides the actual city and the buildings, you need to go to the old city because the old city is where all of the government is at. But also, as I said, all of the tourist views of the city and everything are at. And it's like a really drastic comparison because you're into this whole skyscrapers, driving by the highway with the ocean on your side, and then you just magically enter this old lifestyle, this old architecture that is like the influence from the French when they were building the first canal. It's all influenced from that time. So it looks like they're renovating it. So it looks exactly like it was back in the day. And it's all colorful. It is beautiful. And it's just like if you're in two different cities in one place. So I would definitely say look at those two things.
Well, I know part of the old city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, right?
Yeah.
It's the oldest established European settlement, I think, on the Pacific coast.
Yeah.
Is that where you're talking about as far as the old city?
Yeah, it's called Casco Viejo or Casco Antiguo. And that's where our national theater is at, where if you go inside, it's all made out of gold. And you look into the ceiling, and it's this huge hand-painted mural of angels. It is the most beautiful place. And we also have the Altar De Oro, which is a church, which is the altar is all made out of gold. And that was an altar that Captain Morgan, the actual pirate, tried to step in to steal, but Panamanians covered it in mud. So he couldn't find the gold, but it was right there. And he just left and he burned the old city down and then tried to do that with this new old city, but he couldn't because he didn't find what he wanted.
Wow, that I didn't even know Henry Morgan was that far south because when we think of Captain Morgan, we think of Jamaica and all of that. So there we go.
Yep.
Just learning something every day. But now it's time for our signature lightning round where we ask you 10 questions. So are you ready to get started?
Of course, let's do it.
All right. One wish, what would it be?
I would say that everybody in the world has the opportunity to get to know the Panama I grew up in.
That's a great answer.
Awesome.
That hits the nail on the head right there. Which country do you want to visit the most and why?
I would say as a whole, the French Polynesia. When I went to Hawaii for the first time, and I've been back a million times, it is my favorite place in all of the United States is Hawaii, literally, because it is so different and I love the culture. So I would say French Polynesia.
That's definitely high on my list as well. Not only Bora Bora, but Papeete, and there are really hundreds of islands over there. So that's a good one. We haven't had that answer yet. So
no, but Hawaii is America's paradise. That's for sure.
I still have to get there. I've heard from both of you how great it is. So
which island did you get to, Kim?
Oh, I went to Maui, Kauai, and Oahu.
So you've been around, that's for sure.
Oh, I love it. I was supposed to go last year for New Year's because like something I do with my family is doing the luau's for New Year's. And then COVID hit. So I'm still anxious to get back.
There's a different vibe in the air.
It doesn't seem like it's the United States. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Or anywhere else, really. There's just a calm in the air. Something special about the area.
What's one thing in Panama that you would still really like to do that you haven't experienced yet?
Two things actually. So first, hike the Volcán Barú, which is a volcano in Panama. It's in the border with Costa Rica, so it's in Chiriquí, the province. It is the tallest peak in Panama, so definitely hike that. I'm not a hiker, but that's something I really want to do before I die in my own country. And buy an original pollera, which is our national women's dress, and march in the festivals of the 1000 pollera. So it's like a 1000 women marching in the interior of Panama in one of the main highways, dancing to typical music in their polleras.
Yeah, that sounds like something that you wouldn't know about unless you stumble upon it. So thank you for the insight there. That's
Yeah.
a festival that I had never heard of. So,
Yeah, it happens now in December, in November because of our month, Independence Month, and it is beautiful because an original pollera can cost up to like at least $5,000, and it goes up because it's all gold, and they come from the petticoat that the Spanish women, when they lived in Panama, when we were part of Spain, they used to wear petticoats under their dresses, but because Panama was too hot for them, they would just take their dress off and wear their petticoat. And the Panamanian nationals saw that as something really beautiful, and it was just underwear for the Spaniards. And they turned it into like their national dress, obviously with a lot more gold and jewelry and everything.
That's incredible. Is there a particular reason why it's only women in the march?
I mean, men wear their montunos, which is just like a white guayabera shirt and black pants and their hat, and they dance with the women. They escort them.
Okay. So it is both men and women.
Yeah.
That's history coming to life right there, folks. That sounds fantastic. What's the strangest thing that you've eaten?
Oh my God. I don't eat a lot of strange things because I'm really picky. But I mean, this probably is normal for you guys and anybody that's listening. But the weirdest thing I ate was the grasshopper tacos in Mexico. Oh, no.
Protein.
Hey, but you tried it.
I tried it. Yeah. I want to try like frog legs because my dad says it tastes like chicken. And I don't know if I would try this, but I really want to see it live. Is like, I don't know if it's Japan, Korea, or China where they have the live octopus. Yeah, I wanna see it. I don't know if I'm gonna try that.
I actually tried that in Haiti. Just had some octopus that the guy had just caught. And was a fisherman. Just walked outside of the walked off the beach and said, "Hey, you want to try this?" So yeah, and you're right. In all three countries, they have it. You just have to find where. It's not easy to find, and you have to go really early because when they catch it, it's usually the crack of dawn. So
yeah,
definitely ones to try for sure. What's your favorite thing about Panama?
So this is something I mentioned in this podcast, is basically how we wear our heart in our sleeve. Something I really like is that we're willing to help anyone, not even like if it's a stranger walking in the street and they ask you for help. It's not that type of person where if you open your window here in DC and you try to ask them, they look at you weirdly like, okay, no. In Panama, they would come up to you like, hey, yeah, what's up? What do you need? They say, que sopa? Que sopa? It's what's up. It's literally what's up written the other way around. And it's just a way of us telling you, like, we're here. We can help out. Nobody's helping you. We'll help you out.
That hospitality, it's something that I found all throughout Central South America, other parts of the globe. You're exactly right. It's so different because somebody coming up to you, you're automatically on guard. But walking down the middle of the street here in Brazil, just, excuse me, where is this? And somebody be like, oh, it's right over there. No pretenses whatsoever. So that's something that's a true cultural difference. What would you say is the must-see attraction in Panama?
Well, besides what we've talked about regarding the canal, the railroad, a food tour around the country, I would definitely say the Sariwa Desert. Because again, Panama has islands, oceans, rainforests, but it also has a desert. And it's called Sariwa. It is not sand, but it's like mud, like hard clay. And it's all cracked. It's all orange and it's all cracked. And they have like really these weird trees in the middle of the desert. And it's really beautiful. It's unique.
Definitely have to write that one down. How do you say it again? Sariwa?
Sariwa. Mm-hmm.
Sariwa.
I had no idea.
Neither did I. There we go. That's why we're doing this podcast, folks, just to find out things like that. The proof is in the pudding. So what is one tip that you have for travelers?
Well, besides sunscreen and water, because you'll get dehydrated, it's very hot, very tropical. I would say just be prepared to be amazed. You might hear a podcast, you might hear tips, you might see movies about Panama, but it's nothing like what you actually experience once you are in ground.
And just to build on top of that, what would you say the best time of year is?
I would say carnival season, so late February, early March. It's sunny, and actually, carnival is really big in Panama. You have the typical carnival that was inspired by the Brazilian, so you have the girls with the feathers and everything. And there's this contest between in Las Tablas, which is a province in Panama, between Calle Arriba, so the high road, and Calle Abajo, the low road, and they just dance off to see who wins carnivals. And then you have the young people carnivals, basically, which are in Penonome, and they're also in the interior of Panama, away from the city. And it's just what we call culecos. And culecos is just the government gives a bunch of like firefighter trucks, puts them in the main highway of the city in the interior. It's a small town. They block it off. There's like this huge like stages for DJs, and everybody just goes in their shorts. You bring your big thermos, fill it up with alcohol, put it around your neck, and just walk around in the fire hoses with the firefighters. They will be wetting you, and you're dancing all day. It starts at 9 a.m., ends at 2 a.m. for 3 whole days. So, yeah.
Oh, my God.
That gives a whole new definition to a festival right there.
Whatever gets in your mouth, whatever doesn't, it's all gravy, right? Man,
Yeah.
That sounds fantastic. I'm gonna have to add that to the long list of bucket list right there. And what motivates you to travel?
Cultures, 100%. When I was a student, I had the opportunity to travel a lot, obviously vacations. Now that I work, it's harder. But what has always motivated me is cultures and history. Just getting to know why people around the world are so different one from another. What brings them to be different? Why are they who they are? And why is the country developed the way it has developed? So definitely cultures and history.
Took the words right out of my mouth. And which mode or modes of transportation do you recommend? I know we talked about this a little bit already, but just give us a synopsis, please.
Yeah, so definitely fly into Panama City. It's the easiest way. If you want to go to Bocos del Toro or to Coiba, there are local planes, smaller planes that take you from the local airport. And if you just want to travel around the city and different provinces, definitely just rent a car. It's not expensive, and it will take you everywhere at your own pace. And you don't have to be relying on like whether there will be someone there, whether there will be a bus or a taxi. Just rent your car and get going.
Renting a car really gives you that freedom and ability to make your own itinerary, as you said, and just stop and move around however you so choose. And that's really important. And the final question, if there was one moment that you could relive in your life, what would it be?
So I had 2 options for this. Again, the basic one would be Euro tripping. I haven't Euro tripped in a while. I really want to do it again, get to know different countries. And another would be volunteering with children in Panama. That's something I had to do in high school because of my CAS hours. I couldn't graduate without doing it. But once I did it, I was like, this is really nice. Seeing how these kids look up to you because you've had the opportunities and they haven't, but you're there to help them have these opportunities is amazing. And that's why 2 years ago, when I graduated college, I applied for the Peace Corps in Panama. I was going to start, but then COVID hit. So, yep, we're just working now. But it's probably maybe not in the Peace Corps, but definitely going back whenever I can to volunteer in the interior areas of Panama, the vulnerable communities.
That's fantastic.
That's incredible that you did that. I guess I want to ask real quick, outside of the Peace Corps, are there still volunteer opportunities where someone like myself or Winfield could sign up for a short amount of time to go to Panama and help?
100%. Yes. So Panama, next to the canal, there's this area in Panama that's called City of Knowledge. It's where all the NGOs are located in Panama. So UNICEF, Red Cross, everything. You just drive into City of Knowledge and you can go into any office and they would have like trips going out 2 days after. with volunteer work. So yeah, that's always something that even local Panamanians really appreciate.
So we don't even need to plan it in advance. We could
I
be
don't
in
think so.
country
I
and do
mean,
it.
I would say do some research to see if
Sure.
you're going, especially now with COVID where things are so vulnerable, whether they're opening or closing or letting people in or not. But there's always, always, always volunteer groups going out.
That's fantastic. And community outreach is something that, as travelers, it's integral to our psyche. We have the privilege of being in a new place and being able to move around, coming with that humility, but also coming with an open mind to be able to share knowledge, as you said, with people that may not have had the same opportunities, is something that's extremely important and that we also promote here heavily on Locales Unknown. Thank you again so much for your time today. We had a great time talking to you. I know I learned so many new things. I don't even know where to begin. Panama, as always, is more than meets the eye.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for having me, and hit me up when you're down there so I can obviously go down and see all the country with you guys as well.
For sure.
Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you guys.
So without further ado, here's a fun fact about Panama. Panama is the only country in the world where you can watch the sun rise on the Atlantic and set on the Pacific. It seems obvious, but it's something that's pretty unique when you think about it. Till next time.
Well, there you have it. Another fun fact about a locale unknown. Thank you, Winfield, and thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another episode with us. We started this podcast in the hopes of shedding some light on the various destinations out there in the world that might be more off the beaten path. And we're hoping we're accomplishing that goal by bringing on our friends and our various guests to give us some insight about their various locations and what to do in the areas. So if you like what you hear, make sure that you follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as the social media platforms out there, because we're back every single week. I wouldn't want you to miss what we have coming up. We already have a couple great guests in the pipeline that we are very excited for, and I think you guys will be too. So we are on Apple Podcasts, we're on Spotify, we're on Google Podcasts, we're on all the other platforms. Locales Unknown. Go ahead and hit the search. When you find us, be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button. And if you're an Apple Podcast user out there, please let us know how we're doing. We're building this for you guys. So scroll down to the bottom of Apple Podcasts and go ahead and leave us a review and maybe some comments there. Also on social media, we are very active on Instagram, on TikTok, on Facebook. We have our YouTube channel, so feel free to go ahead and drop us a line. We have our website, localesunknown.com. You can find all of our episodes there. And if you want to reach us directly, we have our email address, contact@localesunknown.com. Maybe you have some suggestions for us. Maybe you want to introduce us to someone that you think might be a great fit for the show. We are all ears. So once again, thank you so much for listening. We'll be right back here next week with another great episode somewhere out there in the world. Stay tuned.